Thank you. I don't think that's necessary for today, but thank you. So, welcome, and I suspect for most of you this is not your first exhibition presentation today, but as a reminder, just in case it is, or in case something happened in the 5-minute break, could you please make sure if you have any electronic devices that might ring, vibrate, or make some other distracting noise, could you please make sure that they are shut off so that Justin does not have to have that disruption. Thank you. So I also suspect that you've already been introduced to Senior Exhibition Day as a celebration that Justin has been working on preparing his exhibition, certainly all of this year, but as all of you know, as long as you are a student at Oceana High School, each grade level, you begin practicing skills necessary for Senior Exhibition. And a celebration because this is the time where Justin is going to wow us with all of those skills. So without much more from me, the focus is on this guy. I'm going to step aside and Justin is going to share his information with us.
Hi, for those of you that might not have heard, my name is Justin Olagi. I'm a senior here at Oceana High School, and I'd like to start this presentation by first thanking people who have helped me throughout this process. I would like to then thank my mentor, Ryan Reedy, for his help and his support throughout this year. I would like to thank my teacher, Ms. Schwab, even though she's not in here, for how supportive she was, as well as my advisor, Ms. Peters. I would like to thank my mother for coming out and supporting me. I would like to thank my community evaluator for coming out and taking the time out of her day to help me and to help Oceana. I would like to thank all of y'all for being here and for watching my presentation and for hopefully being engaged. So with that said, now's the time that I'm going to start my presentation. And I know you guys have already been through a couple presentations today, so I'd like to just start off with a little music.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I'd like to focus on some of the lyrics of this song. Every breath you take, every move you make, I'll be watching. And this right here is exactly what my presentation is about. Not about the band that was popular in the 80s, The Police, nor about one of their most famous songs, Every Breath You Take, but more about the police always watching you, and how I will prove later in my presentation that this can save countless unnecessary lives from being lost too early on. So I'm going to be proving this by answering a question: should police officers be required to wear body cameras? And my answer to this is yes. And I'm going to explain that throughout this presentation by giving you guys some background on what police use of camera has been and on laws regarding them, why this is an actual issue, why people don't like it, and why people do. Going in depth into the reasonings that body cameras should be used, and going in depth into the reasons that people say body cameras should not be used. After all of this, I'll be concluding and summarizing and explaining why body cameras are absolutely the right answer. So first, I need to get into the history of police cameras. And police cameras and surveillance technology started really in the 80s when a group called MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, started pushing for police dash cams, which are the cameras inside of a police vehicle, to help capture drunk drivers and stop them from being on the road so much. And this push is what got dash cams nationwide and got them really widely used throughout the country. And it really ended up being pretty successful. Drunk driving was greatly reduced because there were more convictions in drunk driving offenses. Dash cams also came to use again in the 90s when the war on drugs was started. And they came to use here because oftentimes police officers would pull over a suspect and ask them if they could look inside their vehicle for drugs. When they asked this, the suspect said yes, and the police officer ended up finding drugs in the vehicle. However, many of these people were not convicted because juries did not believe that these drug traffickers were honestly stupid enough to say, yes, you can search my vehicle, while they had hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars worth of drugs inside. what the dash cams helped to do was to prove that these traffickers actually did say yes. They were not forced into saying yes, and that it was completely willing. And so they helped convict many drug traffickers throughout the 90s. With police surveillance, there was also something that I'm sure many of you know of called Rodney King. For those of you that don't know, the Rodney King incident was an incident where a citizen recorded a beating of an African American in LA named Rodney King. And this beating was grossly overdone. This man was not resisting anymore, and he was being savagely beaten by multiple police officers. This sparked a nationwide protest and anger and resentment at police officers, and the lack of indictment, which means the police officers not being found guilty, caused the LA riots, which led to the loss of 63 lives. So this was really an eye-opener for the police and for the public as to why we need to be watching what the police are doing, both for their safety and for the public's safety. And for a while, dash cams were doing this job effectively. However, as the years went on, we've realized that there are some problems with dash cams. For one thing, they only record from inside the vehicle. They only record what you can see from the front of the vehicle. As well as this, many dash cams do not have sound recording capabilities. And even if they do, that cuts out as soon as a police officer enters a home, turns a corner, or even walks too far from the car. And so because of these, dash cams have been found to be lacking in many areas. And what a lot of people say is the next step up is body cameras. Now, for body cameras, there are multiple very popular types, and I've got little examples here. There is the lapel camera, which would go on your shirt pocket or just the center of your shirt. It would clip on there. And there is also the eyeglass camera that would either clip onto your glasses or onto the brim of your hat. You know, I'll be passing these around later. But for the purpose of my presentation today, I will be talking about the eyeglass camera. And the reason for that is I'm going to use my mother as an example here. If I am, say, a police officer and I am talking to my mother, I'm not sure what she is going to do because she is just a random person on the street. So I'm going to be standing in a defensive stance while talking to her. If I'm wearing the lapel camera, it will be facing towards you and not towards her, and so you won't be seeing what I'm actually looking at. The glasses camera will be looking at whatever I am looking at all times, and so it will be a more accurate representation of what the police officer is seeing. Because the dash cams are so much, the eyeglass cameras are so much more effective, I am going to be talking about those almost exclusively today. So these cameras cost about $600 per camera. And according to the Department of Labor, there are 780,000 police officers in the United States. Just to give you guys a little ground base and do some math for you guys, 780,000 times 600 is $311,220,000. That's how much it would cost to equip all police officers in the United States with body cameras. And here's a graph I'll be coming back to later. It doesn't really mean anything yet, but it will. So, now I'm going to be talking about Rialto. It's another really important piece of background information that you need to know. And Rialto is a city in Southern California, and it is also the city where the only truly comprehensive study of body cameras has been done. And it was done as part of the police chief's master's program in coordination with Cambridge University. And in this study, when police officers showed up for their entire shift was randomly assigned whether to wear body cameras as part of the experimental shift or not to wear body cameras as part of the control shift. And they recorded these findings over a year, and it ended up being 489 shifts with cameras and 499 without throughout the entire year. And what they found was a drastic decrease in use of force and complaints. So this is a before and after chart. The year before the body cameras were implemented, there were 60 uses of force. During the year that there were body cameras implemented, there were 25, 17 of which were done by police officers who were not wearing the body cameras, as well as a drastic decrease in complaints. The year before there was 28, whereas the year with body cameras there were only 3. That's a decrease of 59% and of 88%. And so I'm going to get a little bit more into detail about this as well later on today. And so, as like I said, you need to know kind of laws regarding camera surveillance and what the police can and cannot do to really understand this topic. So, privacy. I'd like to talk about the laws regarding this. There are no federal laws regarding this. However, multiple states, including California, have court cases that all lead to very similar conclusions. So I'm going to be talking about 2 of those. The first one is People versus Lucero. This was a California court case where a man was placed into a police car with his accomplice without any police officers inside, and he then started discussing the crime he had committed. The police officers had, however, left a voice recording device inside the police car as well, and later used that to convict him of the crime. He said that this was a violation of his right to privacy. However, the court decided that there is no expectation of privacy when you are near a police officer or inside of a police vehicle. And then, so that's really what kind of expectation of privacy when you have when you're around police officers. But what about police surveillance? So, for this, I'd like to talk about United States versus Akita. This was a 9th District court ruling, and for those of you that don't know what that is the appeals court that has rulings that hold for 11 different United States districts and territories. And in this situation, there were three federal agents involved. There were 2 DEA agents who were doing something illegal. If I remember right, it was wiretapping. And there was a 3rd agent who suspected this, and so in their common office area, he placed a video camera to record what was happening. When he caught these DEA agents, they said that this was a violation of their rights because they had a right to privacy because there was no other people around them at the time. However, the holding in this was that any kind of video surveillance by a police officer does not violate your right to privacy as long as it is somewhere where they would normally be able to be. So it could be anywhere really in public or in a private office that they have access to, like in this situation. So that's a lot of background information, I know, but it's really all you need to know about it. And it kind of shows some kind of mixed feelings as to why body cameras maybe should or should not be used. And that's kind of the issue. A lot of people claim that body cameras are an invasion of your privacy. They're too expensive, and many people are also worried that they won't work in the first place. These are all valid points, and I'll get to them a little later. But for now, I'd like to talk about why body cameras should be used. Body cameras will, as I will prove later on, body cameras will help improve relationships between police officers and citizens. They will lower complaints, and they will help the public see things from a police officer's point of view. I will also explain to you how necessary body cameras are. Body cameras are necessary to help protect the public from the police. And really quickly, for anyone who is very sensitive to any kind of graphic images, I will be showing them in a second, and I will let you know when this is over. But there are some graphic images I will be showing right now. So, body cameras are necessary to help protect the public from police, like I said. They're necessary to help stop events like the shooting of Michael Brown, who was shot dead by police in Ferguson, and his last words were, "I don't have a gun, stop shooting." He was then left for his body to rot in the hot summer sun for 4 hours before being picked up. It's also to stop deaths like Kelly Thomas's, a homeless man who was beaten to death in Fullerton, California because he looked like a car thief. Deaths like Oscar Grant, just over in Oakland, who was restrained at a BART station and then shot point blank. And most recently, Eric Garner, a man who was suspected of selling untaxed cigarettes and then choked to death after repeatedly saying, "I can't breathe." Justice was not served in any of these cases. In every single one, the police officers were acquitted or found not guilty of murdering these people. This is one of the reasons that body cameras are so necessary in our lives today. These are all cases within the last 3 years. So, for those of you that might have been, looking away, all the graphic images are gone now. So, you might be wondering, who is on each side of this situation? Who agrees and disagrees with body cameras? And so the people who want body cameras are police officers, politicians, and general citizens. However, the people that are against body cameras are also police officers, politicians, and general citizens. There is no real clear divide because this is such a complicated issue. Everyone is worried about the cost, everyone is worried about the privacy aspects, and everyone is worried about the unnecessary loss of life that is happening. So, because of this, there are no real clear sides. However, there's lots of support both for and against. So, I'd like to go back to Rialto, California a little bit. I talked to you guys about how it decreased use of force by 59% and complaints were decreased by 88%. But what I didn't tell you is that in a New York Times article where they interviewed multiple people in Rialto, citizens and police officers, they all reported feeling safer in their environment and their community because they knew that they were protected. That if the police officer decided to do something unjust, the video cameras would show it. They knew that if the citizen decided to make a false complaint against them, they were protected. The recordings would protect them from anything that was wrong. And it helped repair the damages that tragedies like the deaths of Oscar Grant and Kelly Thomas caused. Body cameras were also recorded by the study done by University of Cambridge and the police chief to have acted as a deterrent. Not so much to make people stop doing these things in themselves, but to make people more aware of how they were acting. To make them realize, hey, maybe I should take this down a notch, because they were more self-aware of that fact that they will be seen in the future and that there was going to be a recording of what was going to happen. So, like I said before, some people claim that body cameras are not going to be all that effective. And they claim this because of, once again, Rodney King. After Rodney King was beat, and there was lots of public watching of the LA police, they implemented a mandatory audio recorders. However, what happened here is in the areas that were high crime and that were known to have victims of abuse and have police brutality all the time, these recorders all unexpectedly disappeared or broke, and the abuse continued. And people are worried that this will happen also with body cameras, that these cameras will disappear or break, and the abuse will just continue. However, the fact remains that a pattern of breaking or disappearing items will prove in and of itself that these officers are doing something wrong and that they need to be investigated further, and will help take them off the force and stop their abusive tactics. So they also cite the case of Rodney King and this case of very recently Eric Garner, where there was footage of police officers abusing citizens, and yet these police officers still walked free. However, the way body cameras will work is this footage will be from the police officer's perspective. An integral part of the defense of the police officers in both cases was the fact that there was something happening that camera, that novice and amateur citizen, did not catch while he was recording the incident. The body cameras would show everything from a police officer's point of view and would leave no question as to what the police officer did or did not see. and would lead to more arrests and potentially could have led to the arrest of the officers involved in the Rodney King case and the Eric Garner case. So, the costs. You guys saw this graph again before, and it looks like a lot of money, right? $311,220,000. However, body cameras can save more money than that. Body cameras, just in LA and New York alone, can save potentially almost $400 million. And this is because in New York, they spent, this last year, they spent $735 million in settlements in court cases brought against their police officers for abuse or for neglect or for some kind of wrongdoing. That's a lot of money. That's already enough money. But like I said, this is New York and LA. LA spent $54 million in settlements. Total, both of these cities total spent $789 million in settlements of court cases brought against police officers in just last year alone. If they were to save all this money, they would make money in the long run. However, I know it is unreasonable to expect them to save all this money. Some of these cases do have foundation, and they did lead to, or they were because of problems with the police officers. But half of these cases could be easily eliminated. And this could be done by it being obvious that the police officer was in the wrong and them being immediately fired for their abuse of power. Or it could be proving that this was a false claim by a citizen just trying to make some money, and the case could be dismissed. This could easily save each of these cities over half of their money in settlements. This alone would be more than enough to pay for body cameras nationwide, just these two cities' savings. Nationwide, the savings would be even much more, and they would lead to a lot less costs incurred by every city in the United States, and they would lead to us being able to use that money for more effective policing. So, those are two of the main arguments against body cameras right there. However, the third and biggest is privacy. And the reason this is such an important argument is because your privacy is important. It's one of your constitutional rights. It is your Fourth Amendment right. And the reason this is a worry is because police officers have to deal with sensitive topics every day. They have to interview victims of sexual assault, of rape, of domestic violence, and of child abuse. They are seeing some of these people at their worst and most vulnerable times. And no one wants to be seen like that. They're trusting the police officer extremely in order to let them see them like that. And body cameras, police stations have been hacked into, and all of their information has been brought to the public before. And so this is an important aspect. However, there has not been a standard policy made for body cameras yet. These people could be excluded from the mandatory recordings of all of these things. And even if they weren't, these people's privacy is important, but it is not important than other people's lives. Your right to privacy is a right, but your right to live is also a right, and a much more important one in my opinion. Whether someone might happen to see you in a compromising position that you think invades your privacy, when really, in many states like I showed you before, it is not actually a right to privacy at that time. It is not your legal right. Or within these many people's lives, with Eric Garner's life, Michael Brown's lives, all of these lives could be saved using body cameras. Your right to privacy is not worth their right to life. So this, among other reasons, are why body cameras are a necessity. Because they'll help improve the relationships between citizens and police officers, because they'll actually save the government money, because they will work, and most importantly, because of the value of a person's life. Something you can't and never should have to try to put a value on. Because of this, the answer to my EQ should body cameras be required for police officers, is an absolute and unwavering yes. Thank you. This time? Yeah?
Are people allowed to record police, like they're doing something if you had your phone on handy?
So the question, in case any of you guys didn't hear that, was, are people allowed to record police officers? And although that wasn't exactly what my question was about, I did end up finding that out, and the answer is yes. As long as it is not interrupting the police officer's duty, as long as it is interfering with an investigation, people do have the right to record police officers either visually or with audio, or with both. Yes?
So you mentioned police officers, politicians, and general citizens. You didn't touch on the insurance companies that cover the municipalities. Wouldn't they be the primary person who would want these body cameras on the police officers? Because they're the ones who are paying out these huge settlements sometimes for various crimes.
So, for those of you that might not have heard once more, that was questioning about the support of body cameras and insurance companies, whether or not they would support it. I wasn't able to find that many insurance companies, and I honestly did not really think of that aspect. However, one of the reports on body cameras that was for body cameras was from a insurance company for police officers. So I would say yes, and that reasoning I would also agree with. They do want these things to stop because they have to pay for them. So yes, they would be in support of it, but there's also lots of people against it still because of the privacy and cost issue. Yes?
Why did you choose this topic?
Sorry?
Why did you choose this topic?
Oh, so the question was, why did I choose the topic? And I chose this topic, honestly, kind of at the last minute. I had a different topic throughout the entire summer, and then Michael Brown happened and Ferguson happened within like 2 weeks of school being about to start. And I was just really interested in what was going on, and there was these questions of body cameras, and I weren't exactly sure what they were. And so the more I researched it, it seemed pretty interesting and kind of complicated, so I figured I would go for it. Yeah?
So you mentioned one of the body cameras was like for the eye, or like the glasses?
Yeah.
Does that mean like the police would have to like wear glasses the whole time?
Police officer, so the question there was, using these cameras, the eyeglass camera, would police officers have to wear glasses all the time? And although police officers usually do wear glasses because they usually wear sunglasses as part of their uniform, they do not have to. It can also go onto the brim of their hat, which can be easily made as a mandatory part of their uniform, and is often a common part of their uniform. Are there any more questions? If there are, oh.
Well, and actually one of the question that I had was already asked, but I'll see if I can give you another one. So obviously your answer is yes. So what's the issue? What is the stopping block? Why aren't we moving forward if the evidence is so compelling? I mean, I appreciate you mentioned some of the reasonings, but is there a group? Is there something missing in society that is preventing us from moving forward?
As far as I could tell, there's not a specific group. There is a large amount of people that are saying no and being very vocal about not wanting body cameras because of the privacy aspect. And also, although the money would be saved, $311,220,000 is a lot of money. It would take a little while to, figure out and get people to agree to the taxes that would have to come to that. However, we are making progress and it is moving forward. However, each time it does is sadly preceded by another unnecessary death.
So, as a follow-up to this question, do you think in the future it would be better or worse?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Do you think in the future would it be better or would it be worse?
So the question, if I'm getting it right, will there be more body cameras in the future? Do I believe?
Would you move forward even further or
So the question, so it was, would body camera progress move forward in the future? Like, is it on a constant kind of going forward motion? And the answer to that is yes. President Obama has made a speech in which he said he is going to push for body cameras which is a big deal. I mean, he has to get past, Congress, and that's always a big leap for him. But he has pushed for it, and like I said, every unnecessary death that happens, more people are becoming aware, more people are realizing that this is an issue that these cameras can stop and will stop, so it is slowly gaining traction. Yes.
Do you think as we get more and more younger police officers or guys and girls who come back from the military who consistently, the MPs always wear cameras, especially when they're in war zones, do you think as we get the younger group that comes up that's used to being on video, that it will change the dynamics of the police force? Because obviously the older police force who are not used to this are probably going to be the hardest to convince to do something different.
So will the younger generation help help body cameras go forward? Based on my research, just general research, I can't cite anything specific, but I would say yes, because I can't cite one news article about Ferguson, a young general, I believe, in the Army was talking about their riot prevention tactics. And while they were discussing these tactics, they were discussing how the cameras were helpful, and they were, honestly, in much of the article, they were criticizing Ferguson police and their incorrect use of military technology and weaponry. And so I would say yes, because this general, this high-ranking officer was pushing for body cameras. They were saying, when I come back to the United States, I will be pushing for this. I will be using my influence and authority to help get this as a normal, to help get body cameras as a norm. Are there any other questions? If there are no further questions, then that concludes my presentation.